How do you even begin to tell the story of a nation like Mexico? I mean, it's a story that spans thousands of years, full of incredible empires and just devastating defeats. Well, I think the best way to get a handle on it is to look at two powerful, almost opposite ideas that have really defined its entire history. And it all starts with this one simple but really powerful thought. This quote right here, this is everything. It perfectly breaks Mexico's long history into two distinct acts. First, a time of deep, profound mystery, and then a time of almost constant instability. So think of this as the lens we're going to use to understand everything that comes next. So that's our game plan. We're going to start with that age of mystery, digging into these amazing civilizations that rose up and then just vanished. And then we'll shift gears to the age of instability that really kicked off when Europeans arrived and just kept going for centuries. All right, Act 1. We're diving deep into pre-Columbian Mesoamerica. And this part of the story isn't just about what happened. It's really about the haunting question of why it all just stopped. It all kicks off with the Olmecs. Down in the fertile south, they basically had it all. A good climate, plenty of water, people, and corn. They built the first great cities, they created a culture, and they set up these trade routes that would basically be the lifeblood of civilization there for 1,000 years. And right away, we hit our first huge mystery. After laying the groundwork for literally everyone that came after them, the Olmecs just kind of faded out. Maybe their rivers filled up with silt, who knows? The truth is the historical record says nothing. We just don't have the answer. So after the Olmecs, the Maya come into the picture. And their secret weapon, believe it or not, was limestone. It was perfect for building these incredible, long-lasting cities, sure, but it also naturally filtered their drinking water. And that stability let them develop some unbelievably advanced science, like their famous long-count calendar. And yet, that same pattern happens all over again. During what historians call the pre-classical collapse, their huge cities were just abandoned. Trade networks fell apart, and monuments were left to crumble. Was it war? Some kind of terrible famine? Again, even their own writing system, the oldest in the Americas, gives us zero clues. The mystery just gets deeper. And this brings us to the absolute powerhouse of the time, the city of Teotihuacan. This place was a monster, a huge metropolis in the Valley of Mexico that controlled regional trade for 500 years. Its influence was so great that it was messing with politics in cities hundreds of miles away, even putting its own rulers in charge in the Mayan city of Tikal. But here's the crazy part. We have no idea who its people were. We don't even know who built this incredible city, and its collapse just as mysterious. Dig sites show evidence of riots, like the people rose up and burned the places of the ruling class. So did this internal collapse set off a domino effect that led to the final classical Mayan collapse? It's a really good theory, but the answer was lost to time. Now, out of the ashes of all these fallen giants, one last great power comes onto the scene, the Aztecs. They built their amazing capital, Tenochtitlan, on an island in the middle of a lake, all based on a prophecy about an eagle on a cactus eating a snake, an image that, as you know, is literally at the heart of Mexico's flag today. They were on track to become the most powerful empire on the continent. And it was this mighty Aztec Empire that would come face to face with the single biggest turning point in the history of the Americas. The age of mystery was about to come to a sudden, violent end with the world-changing arrival of the Spanish. You really couldn't have two more different worldviews about to slam into each other. On one side, you have the Aztecs. Their entire world revolved around appeasing the gods with human sacrifice, and they captured people for this in so-called flower wars. Then you have 16th century Spain, fresh off the Reconquista, their huge war to retake their homeland. They were fired up with this intense Catholic zeal to convert people, conquer land, and get rich. Two totally incompatible ways of seeing the world were on a collision course. The result was a demographic catastrophe on a scale that's hard to even wrap your head around. And it's so important to get this. While the conquest itself was unbelievably brutal, the deadliest weapon wasn't a sword or a cannon. It was disease. Some modern estimates put the death rate of the native population at a staggering 90%. You see, this collapse wasn't just one thing. It was a perfect storm. European diseases like smallpox, which the native peoples had zero immunity to, did most of the damage.
But that was made so much worse by the Spanish having better weapons, a brutal system of forced labor called the encomienda, and the deliberate destruction of native culture, with missionaries burning countless historical records they thought were the devil's work. But this collision didn't just wipe out the old world. It actually created a brand new one. Out of all that destruction, a new blended society was born. But man, was it built on a foundation of deep, rigid inequality. So the Spanish set up this really strict racial caste system to keep control. Right at the tippy top were the peninsulares, people born in Spain. Just below them were the criollos, who had pure Spanish blood but were born in the Americas. Then came the mestizos, people of mixed Spanish and native heritage. And the very bottom were the indigenous peoples. This pyramid scheme basically defined life there for 300 years. And that term, mestizo, is just absolutely key to understanding modern Mexico. This mix of people, which was once a sign of being lower on the social ladder, eventually became the very foundation of a new national identity. Today, the overwhelming majority of Mexicans identify as mestizo. And this blending happened everywhere. In religion, the Virgin of Guadalupe, who appeared as a mestiza woman, became this incredibly powerful symbol that brought together Spanish and native faiths. Old traditions of honoring ancestors merged with Catholic holidays to create Dia de Muertos, the Day of the Dead. This fusion in the food, the music, the religion, the people, that is the soul of Mexican culture. So, for 300 years, this new blended culture grew and developed. But all those inequalities from the colonial caste system, they were like a pressure cooker, just building and building. So when Mexico finally won its independence from Spain, it didn't create a peaceful, unified nation. It just blew the lid right off, kicking off our second act, an age of relentless instability. I mean, just look at this timeline for a second. The pace of conflict is just relentless. Independence is followed almost immediately by Texas breaking away, then a catastrophic war with the U.S., then a brutal civil war between liberals and conservatives, and then a foreign invasion by the French. It was one crisis slamming into the next, with no time to recover. And this chart right here shows one of the deepest wounds of that whole era in the starkest terms possible. After the war with the United States ended in 1848, Mexico lost nearly half of its territory. That massive loss of land was a profound national trauma, and it only poured more fuel on the fire of political instability. And that instability, it didn't just stop when the calendar flipped to the 20th century. The fight for what Mexico would be, for peace and for control, was about to explode all over again. So the 20th century kicks off with the Mexican Revolution, a horrifying, decade-long civil war that killed 1.5 million people. And the violence didn't stop there. It was followed by a whole series of political assassinations and even another war over religious freedom. And out of all that chaos, a single political party emerged and held onto power for the next 71 years, right up until the year 2000. So when stability finally did come, it wasn't really earned through consensus, it was imposed by force. And all of that leaves us with a really profound question to think about. When you look back at Mexico's long, painful, and incredibly resilient history, this epic story of mysterious collapse followed by centuries of violent struggle, you have to ask yourself, in so much of the Western world, we just take stability for granted. But when did we forget that for so many people, for so long, it has been a rare and incredibly precious luxury?